Oh, meltdowns in public are the absolute worst. I think I was just in survival mode and I just did what I had to do. When you have a kid that is delayed, that it can get so discouraging. They will do it at their own time, but they will get there. Before I get into the last set of questions, which is all about special needs, if you are new to my channel, I just want to say thank you so much for being here and please subscribe. Now I'm going to go ahead and answer all of the questions about kids with special needs. So the first question is from Handling Three Hansons, and she said, how do you keep your cool when you have a kid who is delayed? That is such a good question because it can get really frustrating. I know that we all have these expectations that are almost like subconscious. Like we just expect that our kids are going to do this, this, and this at a certain age and whatnot. And we have one son who just has always done everything on his own time. And that can be incredibly frustrating, especially in the mommy community where moms can be very catty about stuff and they can compare their children to each other. Well, my kid crawled when they were 4 months old and my kid did this, my kid did that. And when you have a kid that is delayed, that it can get so discouraging, especially as a new mom. And so, I mean, one of the things for me, I just had to kind of like ignore all that stuff because my kid was still doing what he needed to do. He was just doing it at his own pace. And so that kind of goes along with homeschool as well for us. If he is struggling, then we just will take our time or switch things up or switch to a different subject or do things like that just to kind of make it easier. But it is definitely difficult, and I can completely sympathize with anyone who deals with a child who has any type of learning delay. It can be very frustrating, especially as a person who does not have learning delay, because you have these expectations where you think, oh, you should be able to see that that letter is a C. Why don't you see that it's a C? And they don't. And so you have to just be incredibly patient. And I know that for me, that was one of the first lessons that I learned as a mom was patience. You have to be so incredibly patient and they will get there. They will do it at their own time, but they will get there. The next question is from Blessed Mama for Jesus. And she said, how do you handle restaurant meltdowns? Oh, meltdowns in public are the absolute worst. And this is someone coming from church this morning where my son had a meltdown in the middle of church. And so yes, I completely understand what it feels like to have a child meltdown in public. And if you are with someone else, a spouse or a friend, a grandparent, whatever it may be, just take the kid out. Take them outdoors. My children who have meltdowns always do better when they're outdoors for whatever reason. And so if I can get the child outside, they will do so much better. But if you're alone, that is the hardest part. Being alone with a child who's having a meltdown. And I had someone ask me that question about grocery shopping. And what I would do is if I was alone, I would actually hold the kid while I was pushing the cart. And even if it was like a big, 40-pound child, 50-pound child, I would just hold them and kind of sit them where you hold, obviously so it doesn't tip or anything like that, and just keep them close to me until we can exit the store. And so in a restaurant situation where, if you've just ordered your food or something like that, and especially if you're alone, you don't know what to do because you can't just walk out on the food. So that's really hard. You just sometimes have to hold them until they can calm down or leave the space. If you need to leave and you're alone with your kids, you can always tell your waiter, hey, my kid is having a hard time. I need to take him and my other children out for a second. Please, we're coming back. Do not clear our table. And hopefully your child will have calmed down enough that you can go back and eat. The next question is from Sarah Crafts, and it says, any tips for homeschooling an autistic 3-year-old? So I've had an autistic 3-year-old, and I don't really homeschool 3-year-olds. I don't. We read together. We will go over letters and colors and numbers just normally through the day as we're living our life. But I just don't. I don't expect a 3-year-old to be homeschooling. So read a lot of books together, play together, and that's about the best thing that you can do. There's a lizard over there. There's a lizard walking on the grill. Super cute. Okay, moving on. Rena Spinning asked, how do you handle sibling disagreements or sibling issues due to the special needs of another child? And I will say that we are so incredibly beyond blessed in this department because my kids are just so compassionate and so empathetic, and they get it to the extent that they can get it. They get it. And they're just nice to each other. They really, if they can see that one of their siblings is really struggling, they just give him peace and quiet and they don't push him. And I don't know. I do not have a good answer to this question because my kids are they're really special and they get it and they do such a good job. Lydia asked, what are your best strategies for managing all of your kids in public when one or two need all of your attention, particularly for anxiety or sensory needs, and especially when you had more kids in the toddler pre-K years? So we had all of our kids in just shy of 8 years, and the first 5 of them we had in five years. My son was still 5 years old when we had the fifth one. And so, yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot to deal with because I had two kids at the time who were dealing with some sensory issues and spectrum issues and things like that. And I did not leave my house that much, honestly. If I had errands to run or things like that, I left my kids home with my husband and I did not take them with me because for whatever reason, kids with sensory issues, stores, and not for whatever reason, I know what reason, but stores are just incredibly overwhelming and loud and bright and there's people everywhere and stores are the worst. Stores are the absolute worst for people with sensory issues. And so I just did not take my kids to the store because I was already suffering from postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. And so I could not take those kids with me. So I didn't really have any good tips because if I went out, I always went out with my husband or someone else because it was just really hard to have all of those children so young all together with several of them with some special needs. But I know that is not completely true because my husband used to travel all the time for work. And I think a lot of these years are just really fuzzy, but he used to travel all the time for work. And so I was alone with 3 kids and pregnant with my 4th. And then a little bit after I had my 4th, I was alone as well. And so I don't know. I think I was just in survival mode and I just did what I had to do. And thankfully, they were all young, so the homeschool stuff wasn't really taking up a lot of time. So we definitely had nap time and quiet time and things like that, which really helped. But yeah, I don't really remember. Sorry guys, the lighting is changing out here. But the next question is from the Blessed Nest, and she asks, how do you homeschool your special needs child? And I honestly don't really homeschool him or them any differently than my other children. I try to be patient across the board, but I definitely fail at that. If the child is struggling, we will kind of regroup and start over or switch things up or things like that. But that works well with any child who is struggling. If any child is getting frustrated, I always find that the best thing to do is just kind of switch things up and try something else or do a different subject or even take a break or something like that. Go play outside. Those things work for any child. The next question is from Ray, and she asks, how do you encourage your kids, especially your sweet special kids, to do a challenging or new chore or assignment when they seem to go straight to overwhelmed? So when it's a new assignment and they just are immediately overwhelmed. And I think that's pretty common with kids with special needs, but that's pretty common with all people. I know that I can get that way. I'm not so good with new things. They overwhelm me. How do I encourage them? I know I always just try to do things gently and I try to always make things fun or funny. That is one of the ways that works best with my kids. If I can just be silly about it or make it fun, that changes the whole thing. It makes it not so serious, like, oh, we're going to sweep the floor. Oh, let's sweep the floor silly. Like stuff like that just kind of makes it more lighthearted. It doesn't feel so bad or so difficult, and that really helps. Bethany asks, what do you do with your special needs child when they don't want to cooperate out of discouragement? Yeah, that's a big one. They can get discouraged really easily, and I think this just always goes back to the same thing, but just regroup and try something different and come back to it. There's no point in just pushing until they get it. That doesn't even work for adults. You need to just kind of take a step back, try something else for a little bit, and then come back to it, and that just works the best. I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but Liz and Jun asked, how do you deal with sensory processing diagnosis? And where can I learn more info about SPD? Okay, so we actually were referred by our pediatrician to a psychologist, and the psychologist helped us, and then we went to occupational therapy from there. So I always say, like, the first place to start is with your pediatrician. Go straight to your pediatrician because they will know the people that you need to talk to and where you need to go. But how did I deal with the diagnosis? I think for me, ouch, just got hit by something. I think for me that I always knew, because I did the research before I even went to the pediatrician or the pediatrician said anything. I always knew that something was up and something was different. So it wasn't like it was a surprise. It was like, oh yeah, this is what I thought all this time. So in a lot of ways, there's a lot of peace in that. Like, oh, this is what I thought, and now I have this diagnosis. And so, okay, yes, like now we just move forward and we figure out what to do and how to help the child. And so, yeah, I think I dealt with it really positively. But as a mom with a child with, or children with sensory processing disorders, and if you are one that has children or child with SPD, you know that it completely changes your life. You just can't do things that everyone else does. And so that's hard. And I knew for a while, like a long time, I really struggled with that. Like, well, why can't we go to the fair? And why can't we go to a movie or an IMAX or whatever, something like that. But we can't. Those are the types of things that we can't do. And I had to just accept it and be okay with it. And I'm at that point now where thankfully, like, I am okay with it and I've made my peace with it. But there are days still where it's just, it's hard, and you compare yourself to other people, and I know it's bad and you shouldn't compare yourself, but I do. I compare myself to other people, and I see, what they're able to do with their kids, and I'm not able to do that with mine, and sometimes it's really hard. And so that can be really discouraging, but overall, like, these are the amazing, wonderful children that God has given me, and I don't want to begrudge them or begrudge their, special needs and things like that. That is who they are, and we all have our own special needs and our special things and quirks and things like that. And so yeah, you just need to accept it and love the person, and just make your peace and be okay with it. Okay, so the lighting has completely changed here, but that is the end of my video. I've answered all of your questions. If you guys have any more questions for me, please go ahead and put them in the comments down below, and I'll kind of compile them all and do another Q&A at a later date. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed these videos or want to know more about homeschool, special needs, mom life, things like that, please subscribe to my channel, and you can click that little bell for notifications every time I post a video, and I post about 2 or 3 times a week. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.